Did you like the Shane Gillis episode of SNL, Pat?
I did not watch the episode in its entirety, but I watched the monologue and one or two of the skits he was in.
Yeah, I watched pretty much all the skits I could find from it to try to really judge it as fairly as I could. Bro, you having an energy drink right now?
Energy. I'm energizing.
Pat, it's 9 p.m.
I do it for the kids. I do it for the Indians.
Jeez, bro.
Our listeners on the other side of the world, they're waking up right now.
They are waking up.
They're waking up right now, and I'm waking up with them.
Our Asian audience. And now we got our normal, usual weekly Mick and Pat show content coming out now that we finished up our serialized True Detective Season 4
Our
review.
March.
Yeah. Gosh, dude, that just...
Our Forced to Death March.
I still just have a bad taste in my mouth from that show and the way it ended. But anyways, this last weekend... Was it this last weekend? Yeah, it was. Shane Gillis hosted SNL, which was ironic because if you know Shane Gillis, he's a comedian. And he was originally, before he was known to anyone, going to be a kind of no-name SNL cast member. And then some stuff came out that he got canceled for, which I'd never even heard the joke, but he made a joke about Asian people. But everyone, I think you can go and find the joke specifically. I think it's on on the internet in articles, and apparently it wasn't that bad. Apparently it wasn't bad at all. It was just a stand-up comedy joke about Asian people, and I think that should be fair game. There's so many comedians who make jokes about everybody,
right?
And it's okay because they're a comedian, but that guy got canceled. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. He's back. He blew up. After he got fired from SNL.
It's probably the best thing that ever happened to him.
Yeah.
Because he was able to do his own thing. Because he's huge now.
Oh, yeah. He's bigger than life. And, if you haven't heard, he's supposed to be the messiah to Bud Light. Because Bud Light has now partnered with him in a total 180 from being a partner with Dylan Mulvaney to try to bring people back as, fans of Bud Light, which I just...
Bring their frat crowd back.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Shane Gillis is funny. But I'm still not going to drink any Bud Light. And I stand where I stand before all of the controversy.
We have not drinking any less Bud Light
or any more.
And any more Bud Light.
Yeah.
Based off of either of these people.
It was just one of those, I just still think it's so funny that their marketing took such a bad tank. Because I was like, that many people buying Bud Light still? And then to see them trying to do a Hail Mary and get Shane Gillis in the frat homie crowd, which is ironic because Shane Gillis wasn't in a frat. He dropped out of college. He went to West Point and dropped out. And I just think it's funny. He's a lot of people think he's funny. Think he's a big dummy kind of frat Chad bro. But he's I really don't think he is. He's more of just less of a frat bro and more of just a jock bro.
Yeah.
It's way they're a little different. There's some overlap, don't get me wrong, in the Venn diagram.
And just a goofy average dude.
Yeah,
a little bit of that sprinkled in there. And I think that's why he does so well with your everyday people.
And I think he's a genuinely nice guy. From that SNL opener, the monologue, not the cold opener. I didn't see the cold opener. I didn't see whatever it was that said live from Saturday night. Live from New York. It's Saturday Night Live, right? I just saw that it was him going out on stage to, introduce himself stuff. And he talked about how he has that coffee shop that his family opened up, his sister opened up, that puts, mentally retarded people with Down syndrome as the employees.
Yeah.
And he made some funny jokes about it, but all the jokes were very light and not at the expense of people being mentally retarded. It was very wholesome jokes. About everyone leaves with apple juice.
Right.
And a long line that, long line because everyone wants to go there to support the cause. Also because they have people with Down syndrome who just really aren't that experienced making coffee.
Right.
Yeah. That's all funny stuff. But anyways, I thought the cold open was funny as someone who watches Shane Gillis. Because it wasn't funny because he was dropping his best content. He was doing he said some stuff that I was familiar with already from his like
his specials or his other stand-ups.
But it was hilarious watching him laugh
more than
laugh through it and be like, none of you know me. Yeah. This is the worst thing ever.
Because I think, Gillis fans watched it and enjoyed him because we suffered through it with him.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if they put canned laughter in over it.
I don't think so.
Because there was a lot of laughter in the monologue, but then it was like, but he kept saying like, you could tell like the energy that was actually coming wasn't what was you were hearing on the audio. Like
I think it was. I think it was legit because he was. There was so many people there from the media and all that I feel like they would have said that. But two, I just think the laughter we hear versus the laughter when you're there and it's a live studio audience of like I think it can fit like 1,000 people in the seats. Which is really big for a studio audience, right?
Right.
And what you can see underneath the lights are the people not laughing, right? You can see the people just stiff still, like, I hate you, you racist prick.
Yeah.
Right, I hate you, you fat, tall, white boy prick. And, like, it's just one of those things that you could tell they hate. Some people hated him.
And they're not at a comedy club. And they haven't had, 2 or 3 drinks.
Well, and SNL hasn't been a comedy club.
Right.
In over a decade, I think. I think it's been 10 years since SNL had legit borderline stand-up comedy sketches that were that funny to now.
Yeah, it's been they've relied so heavily on political crutches and other things and and some woke crutches that they've just alienated a lot of old school audiences as well as kind of become irrelevant. I think where I remember in middle school, early high school, we would talk about SNL that next Monday, Tuesday, we're especially Lonely Island or whatever, we'd be singing whatever song,
whatever the latest
I got my flippy flappies, whatever it is, and
bro,
it was relevant.
When Dick in a Box came out, that was unreal. The fact that I remember as a freshman in high school seeing that Adam Sandler and the rest of the Lonely Island crew
Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg. Adam Sandler, Andy Samberg, same person.
Yeah, very similar.
But Andy Samberg and the Lonely Island crew worked with Justin Timberlake to do that. And I had never seen Justin Timberlake do something satirical at that point, And so when that came out, I was like, oh my gosh, Justin Timberlake is cool, dude. The fact that he can do this and it's not he's not he's embracing it.
He can be goofy, have fun,
dude,
and just go for it and lay it all out there.
Dude, I won't sing the song because it's such a inappropriate song, but Mother's Lover, I think that's the best Lonely Island song. When it comes to just lyrical genius and the fact that they did it again. It wasn't just one song, but it was Justin Timberlake did a couple songs with them. I thought was phenomenal. All that said, the SNL opener, I definitely think he had bad anxiety, and I could tell he was definitely just trying to be lighthearted about it because he knew people hated him.
Yeah.
And I heard there was stuff backstage with people who were I hate you and I do not want to work with you. And then there was other SNL comics and stuff who were no, dude, let's do it. Let's just do what we can and have fun. But I thought some of the skits were. Did you have any skits that you saw that you enjoyed that thought were pretty funny?
I watched The only one I'm remembering though is the HR meeting.
The HR meeting. I don't know if I saw that one.
I wonder if that was an old one from when he was on the show. I thought he got canned before he was ever even on the show.
He never got on the show.
Okay. So the HR meeting one's basically they're talking about sexual harassment, what you can and can't say in the workplace, and he's just standing up and just trying to kind of push the
envelope a little bit.
Push the line on what can we and can't we say, and it was I'd say it was kind of standard SNL, it's not going to be watched again in the future, but I thought it was still it was just okay. It was funny, and he made it made it funny. The other people on screen really didn't.
I did wonder, because he's done so many funny sketches for Gilly and Keeves.
Yeah,
like Gilly and Keeves on
yeah.
YouTube is some of the best comedy sketches I've seen.
Those are
And
great sketches.
They were the things that won me over. Because like I watched a couple of them and I was like, dude, too gross. I watched his pilot episode of Tires. I was like, dude, this guy's too gross. He's got just too much like potty humor. And then like little by little, the Gilly Keys won me over, and I opened up to his sense of humor. And I realized it wasn't that he was just trying to be disgusting or like, you know, overly sexual jokes or anything like that. I just realized I was like, I don't know. He's just actually a little bit of like a simple, lighthearted guy, and most of his humor is moderately self-deprecating.
Right.
Like he doesn't really he makes like kind of the, I would say, locker room jokes about like, haha, wouldn't it be funny if, right? But then like most of his actual great jokes are like when he's kind of letting himself get roasted. You know what I mean? And like, so,
and I think he's developed as a comic too. Like,
oh yeah,
where he's actually like, some of his best stuff is where it isn't the, you know, gross potty talk, whatever.
Sure.
You know, it's like, and the stuff he says still is funny, but then he's developed his ability to just, he doesn't have to do that to be funny.
Yeah,
he can do it, does do it, but then like, and I think in those shorts he was doing on YouTube, yeah, some of them are very, very vulgar,
so funny.
But then also some of the other ones are like, they're not necessarily that vulgar. They're just good.
And I think he's a great
comedy.
actor, dude. And I just wonder if like there's a little like difference because he gets to like, he's more comfortable, gets to go at his pace and stuff, and it's not live. Versus like SNL, he seemed like very uncomfortable. Seemed like I couldn't tell if it was his skits or if they were doing other people's skits. And I definitely think the best skits were the pre-recorded, not live ones.
Oh yeah.
Like, did you see the Limu Emu one?
I didn't.
Oh my gosh. Did you ever see the movie Training Day with Denzel Washington and Ethan Hawke?
Yeah.
Bro.
They combined them.
It was like Limu Emu, and then Limu becomes... Sorry, Limu Emu is the emu's name. And they're, you know, they're making fun of the Limu Emu sketch on like commercial, right? For, what is that?
Liberty Mutual,
yeah. And they're like, they kick in this dude's door. Like, hey, are you looking to save money on you? Like, you know, one of the cars is. The guy's like, yeah, I am. And then gets shot. And Limu Emu's got a revolver and like shot him. And like Shea Gillis, like without like missing a beat, like, oh my god, Limu, you shot that man. And like the Limu Emu like costume puppet is like really well done and puppeted. And like it's like, it doesn't look like just a sock. You know what I mean? And it was really well done. And you could tell it was pre-recorded. You know, it's a better quality camera, frame rate, and all that. And it was just such a fun sketch. I won't spoil the rest of it, but essentially, Limu Emu was Denzel Washington's character from Training Day, and like it was just good stuff, dude. And all that said, that was definitely, I think, the funniest one. I thought the other one that was pretty funny, but I'm still like, the execution just felt off. Was the Green Bay Packers butt plug one.
Oh no,
you haven't heard of that? Did you not see that? It was pretty funny.
Oh no,
it wasn't too vulgar. It was just like him and his, it was about like what you say and Google finds and search and suggests to you as an ad.
Yeah.
And they're like sitting at a bar eating chips, and they're like, yeah, like Google keeps suggesting that I'm gonna go like the hotels in this area after hearing me talk about wanting to go visit that country, you know, whatever. And like Shea Gillis' character just, yeah, no, I don't think mine works. I think it's pretty broken. It keeps on suggesting this Packers signature butt plug with that as a speaker and plays the Go Pack Go song. And like, I was just like, it was like so specific. It was like, okay, dude, what? It was just like, it was a pretty decent bit, right?
Oh man.
But it was just like, you could tell he was reading off a teleprompter, and it was a little like the people were kind of stumbling over their cues to speak. All of it just felt kind of rushed. And I know that there was one that straight up was like the Family Feud one or something. And like as the camera cuts to like end the skit, it was like so not clear that it was over. And as it cuts, you can hear Shea Gillis like, that one sucked. It was like, he says it in the background. And then he says something like that. And I don't know, dude. He's just such a funny, lighthearted guy.
That's hilarious because he doesn't take that stuff seriously, and then he just calls stuff how he sees it. And, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That one sucked. That's hilarious.
Anyways. Smoke break.
Smoke break.
Hey, Ken, it's Mick, and I've got something important to talk about. We all hope we never find ourselves in a self-defense situation, but life's unpredictable. Enter the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer, an actual credible law firm you could put on retainer for your self-defense needs. For just $35 a month, you get national coverage in all 50 states for criminal and civil legal representation in self-defense situations, complete with a 24/7, 365 toll-free emergency line. That's real legal support when you need it most. What's in the package? Bail bonds, scene cleanup, firearm replacement, even mental health counseling. Plus, 0 fees for a laundry list of defense-related costs like expert witnesses. So support the show and get yourself some peace of mind. Click the link in our show notes or visit our sponsors page to sign up for the National Self-Protection Plan from Attorneys on Retainer.
Hey folks, Pat here. If you're like Mick and I, you're a fan of classic tales like Lonesome Dove, Blood Meridian, The Three-Body Problem, and Steinbeck's East of Eden. With Audible, you can dive into these epic stories anytime, anywhere. Sign up for a free month, and your first audiobook is on the house. To start your free trial and support our show, click the link in the show notes or swing by the sponsors page on our website.
Want an awesome website for your podcast? Check out Podpage. We use it for the Mick and Pat show, and it's a game changer. Set it up in minutes, no coding needed. Support the show by using our link to get started. Your podcast deserves a home as great as ours. Podpage, the one-stop solution. Well, we've been planning on talking about a lot of stuff this episode for a while, and we're kind of just now getting to do a catch-up dump on the news and what we've been watching. And I know I sent you a couple videos just because I've been paying attention, but I found this dude on YouTube. He's got a cool name. I can't remember his real name. It's like very oldie, but his YouTube name is What If Alt Hist, as in like alt history or alternate history. And on YouTube, for any of our listeners out there who aren't familiar with like the YouTube genres, there's like a small subgenre on YouTube of creators that make alternate history videos, which is like, what if the Spartans won at Thermopylae? What if George Washington never stepped down from being president, right? All that stuff. What if the South won the Civil War? What if Nazi Germany never lost? Like, it's all those alternate histories of like, kind of like doomsday a little bit, and like what would have happened. Out. Yeah. And they all try to do their best approach to like really try to give like a pretty decent guess as what would occur for those things. But What If Alt Hist started out as like an alternate history channel with what if scenarios, but then he just started becoming more and more educated and experienced as a historian in the specificity of like the rise and falls of governments and nations and how those are different. And he's now pretty much an entire channel that simply just focuses on actually predicting the future now, not doing projections. He's trying to do projections of like, you know, what I think will happen, why I think, you know, Russia will have a revolution in the next, you know, 20 years, right? China will collapse, whatever. And so he has all this stuff, but the thing that's different about him to me is that he goes through things in a very simple and supportive analysis structure. That when I watch his videos and he provides his like links and references and the reasoning and logic for his conclusions, one, he always, you know, predicates it of like, I'm more likely to be wrong. He always says, I'm making a bet against God because whatever man predicts, you know, God is going to do whatever God does. And I think he's a believer too.
And he's not sensationalist either. Like he's based in.
You won't enjoy it if you want like a 5-minute video,
right? And and like, and some of the stuff he gets into is intense, but it's also like, it's based on patterns in history and playing things forward and what is going on in other parts of the world and what's going on that's gonna, in the same way that like we would never, you would, if I proposed this to you and I said some dude who's like kind of influential in one side of the world is going to get assassinated, and that's going to lead to the entire world,
a minor monarch.
The entire world at war with, millions dead, locked in warfare for years.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't know, like that sounds kind of sensational or like, fantastical. And it's like, well, that's World War One. That's how the cookie crumbled. And so he pulls in these kind of other perspectives where you wouldn't think about, oh, how does a mine in Africa tie into, something global or something that's going to happen over in Vietnam? How do those connect or whatever? Like, and he'll pull that over to explain why he thinks it's going to happen. And I think it helps us give us perspective on maybe something that we think is just a narrow viewpoint. And he's looking at this from a big 30,000 foot view.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of what he does too is like, you might have a fear or just like an unsettled feeling of like, oh, what's going on in Ukraine and Russia and what I'm afraid is going to happen or what I want to happen or who knows what should happen or what will happen or Israel or, the U.S. elections, right? And I think he speaks immediately to a lot of the either fears or theories people have. And when he speaks to those, he comes at it with legitimate evidence and reasoning from history. Like what he, essentially postulates is what will occur. And I want to say this one. This was like a big one that I think he did. That was great because there's a lot of talk about World War III and all that. And one thing that he did very successfully is that he predicted wars that would be coming in the 2020s. And he released the video like a couple weeks, I believe, before Russia invaded Ukraine. And one of his predictions was like, yeah, so Russia's going to invade Ukraine. They have to. And he like listed out some reasons. I don't recall, because I've watched his video since like, a year after the invasion to Ukraine. So I'm not sure how much of it lines up with, what actually happened the days afterwards. But, and he kind of credits, he's like, yeah, so the odds of that happening like that quickly, are pretty low. I'm not a savant, but it was not also a hard prediction to make based off of historical evidence.
Right.
And like a big one that I like that he did was like, the likelihood of like World War III and what we're looking at. And the issue is that I kind of saw a case that he made that we wouldn't have a really big world war, that we might, because of how many countries are on the cusp of having a revolution within them. Like Russia's at a very close like revolution tipping point. The European Union is looking at very close revolutions. But most than anything, like Russia, China, and Korea, or like both the South and North, are at points where they're very likely to have internal conflicts more than external on a global scale. And I thought one of the great videos he did, was just why China as it is now, the government won't be around soon. It's either going to have a revolution and collapse, or it's going to have like a very transitory, quick, maybe abrupt transition to a new government. But the issue is that China, and I'm not going to go on, this won't be like a 5-minute thing. This is just to get you interested in videos. China, we all remember, especially when you and I were growing up as kids, middle school, high school. I remember specifically like early high school, the publicization. Help me out. Publicization? No, that's not
Publicization.
The publicity.
Yeah.
That China's like one son to a set of parents. Doctrine went where like they were aborting girls. They were, if they found out a woman was pregnant with a female baby, like they would abort it, or they would be forced to give it up for adoption, whatever. But they were allowed to keep a single son. And all of us kind of at the time like made jokes of like, oh, well, that's not going to be great because all these dudes are going to be mad. There's no chicks around when they grow up and all that. Ironically, though, historically,
we saw where it was going.
Historically, when we look at the world and when revolutions occur when you have a very high population disproportionately of able-bodied, and by able-bodied I just mean literally able of and like enacting violence, like capable of violence men that don't have a reason to remain tempered in society. And one of the biggest reasons to remain tempered in society is, of course, be a family man, look after my spouse, my significant other, a woman that I love, right? And so he kind of theorizes like because of that and because of this giant disproportionate amount of young able-bodied men for war, and because they have nowhere to like put this frustration and like anger with the society, that literally like China is one of the most aggressively anti-purposeless nations. Like they have specific words and terms that they call Chinese young men who play video games and don't want to get a job. And they like, it's a very strong shame culture there for that. Whereas don't get me wrong, like here in America, like it's still kind of looked down on, I think, but it's also kind of like, I think that some people have stopped looking down on it because they've been like, wow, holy shit. Like I made fun of my kid for, or not my kid, but my nephew or whatever for saying like, you're not going to be able to pay the bills playing video games all day. They literally do pay the bills playing video games all day. Right. And they paid some of my bills. So I guess like, some people, I think that just change, but China, it's still very negative. And all that said, like when you have that large base of young men like that, and there's a bad economy and they don't feel like they have the upward mobility, revolutions explode. Like Tinder, right? Tinder
nothing better to do.
Yeah.
Let's revolt.
And so there's a lot of reasons why they kind of why he gets into it. But I just think like that video in particular was a very well done, broken down example. And he's got a couple other videos. I'm just like, he has Why America Will Have Its French Revolution. And he's kind of predicting that there will be a French lit revolution in America of, the lower class, literally, breaking like guillotine like upper class
violence
people.
against the elites.
Yeah, and like unblanketed violence against elites. And he says, I'm probably wrong, but when you watch the video, when you watch the video, you're like, God damn. That's a pretty good case. And then his other one is why the 2024 election will start a civil war in the U.S., which also, again, these titles are supposed to make you click on them and listen to a 45-minute breakdown. So he always states, I'm betting against God. I'm probably wrong. I don't necessarily truly believe this will happen. Sometimes he says he does believe it will happen. But most of the time he's like, I just think here's the strong reasoning or logic that you could use to make a case why this might happen.
The election will start a civil keyboard war.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no
get
kidding,
get your warriors ready.
Yeah.
Your fingers, that carpal tunnel's coming. When you stay up all night
Keyboard
on the couch,
elbow.
Just letting some other person's opinion just completely devolve and derail you, and just that's all you can think about until you can just get the right response back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, Pat. What do you think about like kind of the whole World War III versus Civil War, conversation?
Yeah, I think a lot about it. I see it on kind of really the two sides that I see is, one, I see it as not likely to happen, but these things have all happened before in history many times over. And so one thing that I think a lot of us, especially a pretty like Western viewpoint, is very short term. It's very like we have a very short view of history, and very like individualist society. We don't focus on the whole nation or tribe, and so therefore we also lose our understanding of history and what it is. And so I think that we just live in this place where and especially growing up in Western world, it's been very comfortable. It's been very easy, no matter kind of rich or poor. We're all surviving. We're all doing like fairly well comparatively to other times in history or other places in the world. And so I think, and it's in a lot of people's minds, and like even people I talk to who they had never thought to themselves it even could be a possibility. They don't think that like a civil war could happen in America. They don't think that World War III could happen. And I'm like, well, one of those has happened twice. Yeah. At least in recent history, there's been 2 world wars, and in recent history, there's been a civil war. Like Civil War was not that long ago that this nation had to deal with that. And so I do think that while it's unlikely, like I said earlier, who would have thought that Franz Ferdinand getting popped would have led to such a big thing? So there is, we'd like to think that we have established civilization, that we've established society in a way that it cannot unravel. But I think what we've seen in little blips and flare-ups, even in the last 4 or 5 years, is it doesn't take a lot to unravel the whole thing.
I think that's all very based in like reasoning too, and I think in particular just on the World War III subject, like as we look at it, is like I think we pay a lot of attention to the European theater, right? Because we're not really like outside of like China taking action against like Taiwan or something like that. We're not really concerned about anyone south of the European theater that much starting World War. We're not really concerned about people to the west or south of China starting World War. It's pretty much just that northern China, Russia, and like North Korea. Kind of there was a concern. It wasn't even like World War. It was just like if North Korea bombs Hawaii, right, we're gonna go whoop ass. And China will have to decide if they want to get in on that or not. Right. And it was always like that thing of like, I don't think none of us were like, China's good. Not do diddly about it. Right. They're going to be like, hey, dude, you made your own bed with this one. But like, I do think like some of the ones I hear that are pretty interesting, you know, and this Tim Pool video that we talked about that he put up with like, you know, Sweden and UK preparing their militaries, you know, they're spending more, right? Which is weird. You know, they have such a usually small budget, and often like, a lot of the EU is under the requirement that NATO has of military spending. Like NATO, a lot of people don't know is NATO, if you're part of NATO says you must spend X amount percentage of your GDP, which I think is 3%. 3% of your country's GDP needs to be spent on your military. And so many militaries are underpaid by that metric, right? And I was just listening to someone who was being interviewed talking about selective service in some of the Nordic countries and some of the other countries in Europe, and how like some of them got paid $60 a month, and it was like literally just sweeping and cleaning. And it's just a sham. Like you don't unless you're like at the top tier like special forces units. Getting paid insane amounts of money by a small government. You're not training, you're not drilling, you're not active and they don't react. Yeah, none of those nations for the last couple of years have had any interest in investing in the military, because sometimes it's just a 6-month like mandatory enlistment conscription, right? And because and then people leave immediately. And because is there a little bit of something of thinking there might be somebody else out there who could take care of all this for us? Meaning, like the government, like the United States being a police, right? Or like, you know, kind of like as for as much critique as you could have of being the world police. And I think that Trump kind of got into this when he was bringing the hammer down on some of these countries, like, you're not paying, you're not getting the benefit. Like if you're not paying, we're not saving you. And he was really coming in hard with that. And to his point being like, yeah, if you don't want us to be the world police, you got to be a part of the solution in some form, right? Or some fashion, or be ready for it and things like that. And there's obviously a lot of, you know, conversation and critique that you go into like that statement, world police. But the if you're a part of the group, if you're part of this allied group, you got to pull some weight in it, right? Ante up and kick in, as Morgan Freeman says in that great movie known as Glory. I love Glory. We should do a Glory. I love Glory. Glory is a good movie. But you know, I think that aspect is like we put a lot of attention on the European theater, but the one thing that I think is most likely to really kick off World War III is a Pakistan or India nuke on nuke. Yeah. Right. Like they have I think Pakistan and India both now have very small scale, small yield nukes. If and they don't like correctly. Each other. They hate each other. And they're the most likely to probably nuke each other right now, more than anyone else. And I think if that occurred, there would be a domino effect of some other people getting wrapped in. Yeah, some other people, nations. That or the China invasion of Taiwan. That one is crazy. Taiwan, I know, is really like, I don't, if you guys want to see real life, like people preparing to defend their nation with their lives, you should look at like the groups training in Taiwan, like the civilian groups. Like they're sponsored by the military. The military is having them come every single weekend to practice and train. Like, the idea is like, all right, China's going to invade Taiwan. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to lose our NVIDIA microchip factory. She's got too much money in the stocks, right? So it's like, if China invades, Taiwan needs to hold off until America gets there. And so there is a lot of like speculation of that one. Those are the only two I could see blowing up to be like a global war thing right now, because so many of the other countries are so vulnerable with the dissatisfaction internally that I know in America a lot of people don't think realistically we'll see a civil war. But I don't think people in America understand what factors lead to a civil war. And when you look at the factors and the trend lines of like how these factors grow and decrease over time, we are like at DEFCON 5 for a civil conflict of some kind in the country. It's crazy.
And if it's not a force on force, mass lines, bloodshed type thing, it's you know, it's all primed for, at very least, the unraveling of a nation. The unraveling because we cannot be unified.
Well, and that's what it is too. It's like these trend lines don't always mean a civil war, but they do almost always correlate with the dissolution of a government. And a big one was when the Republic of Rome became a Roman Empire, and it stopped being a republic with senators and governors, and it became pretty fascist. And hear me out here. I'm not saying Trump is a fascist or him getting elected is fascism. What I am saying is that we are at a point now where we're not even really like democratic republic, capitalist society now. We're getting close to the point of like so much money and authority is in the government's hands that it doesn't matter who gets elected. If we don't like them, the government can turn empirical pretty quickly and decide like, nope, we're the end all be all. It doesn't matter. And like a lot of people think Canada is actually already there. Like a lot of people are pretty much saying like, yeah, Canada never said it was a republic, right? But when you look at kind of similarities between what would a modern day empirical government look like, Canada seems to have pretty much kind of moved over that way, especially with like the nepotism of like Trudeau's dad, now Trudeau, and like who he's kind of cronied up with in government.
Because you take there's one like just the giving of power over to the government more and more, and that's a pretty broad term actually. But then you also take the actual like financial and power capability of the individuals, not their post, not like I'm the governor of the state, but it's like, no, I am like worth like a couple $1 billion. I can raise it. I could raise an army of it, maybe not soldiers, but of, you know, police or like
National Guard,
or like taking it into like the data front or like the computer stuff, like where it's like they could be like,
I can shut down the grid.
Yeah, I can be in control of the narrative. I can be in control. And so like the power that not just the post they have holds. One, we keep giving more and more power to the actual title, but then we also, these people as individuals have extreme power.
Oh yeah.
Even whether they're in that position or not.
The whole point of a republic is that they should not have so much power and authority.
Right.
And one thing that I thought was crazy, Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast threw up a tweet criticizing, without naming Nancy Pelosi, but was criticizing essentially like politicians should not be able to do investment trading. You know, he was essentially calling for like terms on elected positions, right, including Congress and the Senate and the House, right? But it was also like, and while you're there, you're not allowed to trade.
Yeah,
when you retire, you can trade and invest as much as you want, but like you have no right to be able to have that insider information, break the law with insider trading, and you know, manipulate the markets like that. Also, it's just not good if we want to keep our politicians like if we want to protect their integrity,
Mm-hmm.
we should remove as much temptation as possible.
Yeah.
Which is like
their integrity.
the temptation is just there.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird because it's like it already is illegal to do inside trading.
Mm-hmm.
It's already like one of the most prosecuted offenses by the IRS when it
Mhm.
comes to like not low level, but like mid-tier employees at a company.
Right. They hear about the sale coming up. They buy or they sell whatever.
Mhm. Oh, they hear about the merger and they buy right away, right?
Yeah.
But like it's almost never prosecuted for people in like political office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so Mr. Beast makes that post on Twitter and it was deleted almost immediately because Nancy Pelosi's nephew runs the like group of people that like the company that manages Mr. Beast and his socials and like stuff like that. And so they pretty much, I think everyone thinks they just told Mr. Beast delete that shit. Like, because it was very obvious.
Him over.
Yeah, it was very obvious he was alluding to Nancy Pelosi.
Uh-huh.
Like he didn't say anything about her or name begins with a P, but the way he just wrote it out was like, oh, he's talking about Nancy Pelosi. And we all know it.
Wow.
And it was deleted so fast that it was like, it only had like 2,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people got screenshots. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all that said, I thought that was pretty crazy. And that's like that right there. The fact that like, you know, and X I think is getting better under Elon Musk. He's getting way more like let people post whatever they want. But it's really, he can't do anything about a corporation telling them to delete their posts. Right.
Yeah. From the outside.
Yeah.
Putting pressure on him.
Yeah. But like, I do think the social media companies like Google, there's a lot of talks about right now breaking up Google because of the monopoly on information and the threat that holds to like, just again, if you have a company that has that much power and authority over information, it's very tempting for them to just decide what you look at. And it can easily manipulate elections, whether local or federal.
Right. Like looking back at the, when we had the robber barons, when we had, the railroad barons, we had steel barons, we had all these people who were they had the monopoly on the trade and the biggest value of trade at the time. The biggest value of trade going on right now that snuck up on us in the last, 10, 15 years is all running through the internet.
Oh yeah.
It's all, and so, I mean, yeah, we have these, essentially the tech companies are robber barons of the control in this.
No one uses Bing, dude. No one uses Bing. No one is using another like search browser. I mean,
I use Ask Jeeves.
Yeah, do you?
No,
I don't think it's around anymore.
I don't Ask Jeeves.
I think if you type in askjeeves.com, it just goes right to Yahoo Ask. But and I think there's reason to it. I think there is logic in considering like, okay, we broke up AT&T, we broke up other media companies before in the past because they got so big. Makes sense that we would do the same for a web browsing, essentially just a internet as a service tool like company, right? Internet as a service, software as a service, which is why like Alphabet, I think was originally supposed to be broken away completely from Google, but it never went through all the way, which is why like technically Google's ticker symbol on the stock exchange is ALF, for Alphabet. Anyways, all that said, you mentioned like the aid bailouts, proxy wars, and like, dude, some of these things I saw. So this is an article that I read from the Council on Foreign Relations, and it's just got illustrations here that are insane. And of course, if you watch on YouTube, maybe we'll have these graphics on the video, but if you're not, you can, look up yourself to see these illustrations, because they are honestly amazing when you see since 2022 how much money we've sent to Ukraine. And that alone, plus compared to what we usually send as aid in a year to any other nation, but it was $74.3 billion to Ukraine in the last year. 2% of that was humanitarian. 35% of that is just falls under the category of financial, which is sus. Like sus as hell. And then the rest of that is military, which is 62%, 46 billion. To put it in perspective, the amount of money we've given Israel from 2020 since 2022 is $3.3 billion. So we've given to Ukraine, which, don't get me wrong, I get it. There's a war front there, right? But we've given them essentially, what is that? Gosh, I don't know how many years of funding that we've given to Israel. More than 20, about 25 years of what we've given to Israel for, aid we've given to Ukraine in one. And now there's this proposed bill. It hasn't gone through yet, but it's this proposed bill of another 96 billion going to, and they kind of, I think, are trying to win people over by being like, it'll go to Israel and Ukraine. I'm like, it shouldn't go to anyone. It should go to like the problems we have at home. We've thrown so much money over there in a year. It's mind-boggling.
We should say the 3.3 billion to Israel too that's what's standard, what we give them every year.
Yeah.
That's not including what we have given them since their new war.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. Like,
okay.
so like we have sent them more for their war since, but the, in general, we send, that much over to them. But just that being said, that is a ton of aid.
Oh yeah.
A ton of aid. Like, I don't even know. You could start your own country. Like if I had that kind of money, I would just go start my own country. I'd be a benevolent. I think we talked about this before. We're just being a benevolent dictator somewhere on some island, a zoo with all your own animals. But, anyways, the money is insane, and I love the amount of. There's a list here too of all the weaponry. It is a lot of weapons.
It's crazy when you read this list of weaponry of just like 10,000 Javelin anti-armor systems. 6,000 Zuni aircraft rockets, 20,000 Hydra 70 aircraft rockets, 20 Mi-17 helicopters, 60,000 122 millimeter Grad rockets. Not as many drones. Well, it's hard to tell because they say Scan Eagle drones, Puma drones, Jump 20 drones, but there's no numbers.
Yeah.
All right, so I assume it's a shitload of drones. 186 Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, which are, tanks. 31 Abrams tanks specifically, 2,000 Humvees, 2 Harpoon coastal defense systems. I'm sure that's just like a cool $1 bill each. A Harpoon coastal defense system. Harpoon's the name of the system, but I'm just like, there's no way that's cheap. It's just mind-boggling. But anyways, yeah. So if you all are interested in seeing that and just getting an idea prospectively of how much is going over there, what is it like, in value and material-wise going over there, it's the Council on Foreign Relations.org and an article of how much aid has been sent to Ukraine. And it does several visualizations, but I just thought that was crazy, dude. And it really puts into perspective of like, that is, I mean, it's mind-boggling how much that is and how much the other things that are being proposed, like, building, like securing the border, like this securing the border effort has been essentially budgeted out to like being about $20 billion. And it's just like, okay, so we could do that a couple times over with the amount of effort. Like imagine like all those tanks, Humvees, just like everything that we sent them in military aid was just like posted at the border. Border would be secure. You don't even need a wall. Just like you could build a wall out of the 2,000 Humvees that we sent to Ukraine. You know what I mean?
Yep. And this number we've given to Ukraine before the new proposed money that may or may not go through is 10% of our military budget, yearly budget. 10%.
Yeah.
That's a chunk.
Someone took a cut this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like someone is feeling like their department didn't get the money. But anyways, it just boggles my mind. I've said it for a long time, is that like I do believe we America has a responsibility to act when no one else can, right? But also I don't think America is to be the police, right? The global police. And like I think a decent one that like I think about is like Saddam Hussein genociding people back in the day. And he was someone that we appointed
in Desert Storm.
Yeah. And Saddam Hussein, most people don't know this, Saddam Hussein he was once given the keys to the city of Detroit. Like, we made him. And the fact that, like, yeah, I think we have to go over there and take care of that. Like, if we made him and put him there, then we gotta stop what he was doing, right? Because I mean, when you hear like Sean Ryan show, especially, and Sean Ryan, you know, he was a former SEAL and CIA operative, and or CIA contractor, I believe is what he says, not operative. But he talks about what Saddam was doing to people there. Yeah. And like, you're like, oh yeah, okay, all right, that guy had to go. Especially like, it's one thing of like, damn, that dude who's the dictator of that country is a bad guy, but he got there fair and square and people voted for him and that's what his country wants. It's another thing if we, you know, if a foreign entity opposed him.
Yeah. And I had a buddy who was there in the beginning, and they took one of his son's palaces, one of his palaces, and they drained the pond. It was full of young girls.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
That's effed up.
Yeah. Like him and his sons were maybe worse than him, but
I don't know, bro. When I heard about how he put pregnant women on hooks during Christmas, that blew my mind.
It's insane. I mean, that's evil. We're not talking like oil interest. Now, is there some oil interest in there? Sure there was, but also like we're talking about evil too. Like we're talking about like, especially with, you know, I'd say like that was an evil. Yeah. An evil, gassing people, whatever that had to be, I think did need to be addressed.
And again, I mean, even if, again, we did it, like America put him there, right? The stuff like, you know, Vietnam, Afghanistan, much more skeptical on if we should have been there. You know, and like from growing up during like the war on terrorism, right? And not just really knowing why we're there and what we're doing. And now seeing several different generations of veterans who fought in that over in the Middle East and like that conflict. I really don't know. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, I just defer to their opinion. We had no business being there. Like, there wasn't an evil to eradicate when we were in Afghanistan. Like, ISIS was bad. Taliban was bad. They're pretty much reactionary when you look at it to our involvement. Like our invasion is kind of reactionary to instigating that. So it's very hard for me to see like a good case of like absolute evil that couldn't have been addressed internally by that nation that we were somehow responsible to go take care of.
Right, because the Al-Qaeda, Mujahideen, it ending up being ISIS, all those things, while we did come in after them, the flare-up of them in Afghanistan and Iraq came came a ways after the invasion, when it ramped up again in the later years. And so,
and I will say this, I'm incredibly open to hearing someone else like speak on that. It's also the same way I feel about like when I hear Vietnam vets talk about Vietnam. I've never met a Vietnam vet who thought like there was a justified reason to go to Vietnam. Like Vietnam didn't pose a threat to us and our way of life.
Right.
It was certainly a proxy war to kind of claim territory.
Well, and as one thing I don't know why in school we aren't taught, we've got World War I, World War II. We should have China 1 and China 2. That is what Korea and Vietnam were.
Yeah. Korea was even like, I don't think we actually had like hand-to-hand shooting people conflict in Vietnam against Chinese.
And we did.
Oh, we did?
We did.
There were some. Okay, I knew. Both, I was going to say, I know like in Korea.
In Korea, it was a lot more.
It was I killed Chinese army people today.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And so we did have Chi-coms in Vietnam too, but less prevalent, but more proxy stuff. But I just, it's funny in school, you're not, I think it's like some perspective should be lent to like.
I just don't think that many adults that taught us knew dick all about the Korean War. You know what I mean? Like I've learned way more about the Korean War and the Vietnam War after high school.
Right.
Just because I was interested in it. And like I remember when what was that big Korean battle? That was the crazy one of like the Marines were surrounded on like all sides, pretty much pushed up on top of the mountain, and it was like 450,000 Chinese.
It was a lot. I can't remember the name of it, but it is.
I'll look it up.
And because the fighting was brutal, and the fighting was it's called the Forgotten War, and it has been in a lot of ways too, Korea, but it is just another example of where, like how and why did we end up there? It kind of felt like we
Battle of Chosen.
Yeah, Battle of the Chosen.
Yeah.
And so it felt both those wars and Afghanistan, the way it ended up, they all do feel, looking back on it, very world policey, imperialistic, and not in our best interest. And now I will say at the same time, like, I am also like not a pacifist.
Yeah.
Like I seek peace, but I also like am like, I'm okay with like the sort of destruction bringing peace also. And so I'm not coming at it from a full view of like war's always wrong and these sorts of things. I'm like, there's a time and place for these things, and there's there's time and places for Americans to stand up and whoop some hiney around the globe, because now we are really a globalist, species, society in the way that things are so interconnected. And so there will be times when we have to stand up and do things, but
for sure,
unfortunately, it's so frequently around, money and war is in a lot of cases about money and interest. But it's
I really like. I'm trying to think of like. Here's the thing, right? Like, of course, I don't have the answer to this. I am not going to sit here and say I know when America should go to war and shouldn't.
Right.
I do know after like growing up in the generation we did, I'm so anti-war that isn't like a war against a power that is trying to eradicate or conquer us. You know what I mean? Like,
or true defense of your people.
Yeah, like a true defense of our people. Like, even when it comes to like I'll be honest, like I know this is going to be a hot take for a lot of, Christians out there too, but I don't know. I feel like I've heard quite a few Christians talk about like, I don't think we should be supporting the war in Ukraine against Russia or the war in Israel against like Hamas and stuff militarily. I think like we should be offering like humanitarian effort and stuff like that. But I truly do believe like those nations have the means to wage war on their own. And now, yes, if like we see Iran and Russia, proxy sending troops or like, militants through their money and financial efforts against Israel in like a, unified war front, then I'm like, all right, like, I mean, Israel's our ally, and then like maybe we put boots on the ground. But like the whole like idea of like, oh, we need to send them this, so much money that is just vanishing with no accountability, and we have no idea whose hands ending up in. We have no idea where a lot of like military resources are ending up in and whose hands are actually getting those versus what is being just smuggled out. A lot's starting to come out of Ukraine now. And I don't know how much. Again, I'm not super familiar with like the ease that Israel could flip weapons, right? And I don't think we've sent nearly as much to Israel. But all that said, I'm just very cautious on like the pretense of like us proxy warring through those nations, especially when those nations, I do believe, have the means to do war and decide war themselves. And a big thing was like, I don't think we have the right to tell Russia they can't take action that they think is a defense of their borders. The whole concern was essentially Russia said like, we want this territory as a buffer. If Ukraine joins NATO, we're going to take this territory. And a lot of people didn't think Russia would do it. Russia's done it. Russia has held the territory pretty much that they wanted as a buffer zone for going on 9 months now. The war should be done. There should be peace talks. Ukraine is not getting that land back outside of other militaries putting boots on the ground and going in. So what's the point of the money? Russia has said they have no interest in expanding further. And so Israel's like another one of like, Hamas is a terror organization, a terror group. And I don't know if they have a legitimate ability to overthrow Israel as much as like a lot of people are claiming we need to go and like proxy war through Israel because Iran is going to proxy war through Hamas.
Hezbollah.
Yeah. And I have my fears of that. Right. But I definitely think like as someone who cares about like us and our home in America, I'm a much more larger advocate of like the humanitarian non-military aid to a lot of those nations until like our hand is forced, which is in my eyes another nation teams up with the other guys and puts boots on the ground.
Right.
And that may be an outdated view, and that could be an incorrect view, and I'm open to being wrong on that. That's just where like I've always like that's where I've landed now is like, hey, if we want to put our money where our mouth is, let's send an insane amount of like relief aid and medical humanitarian supplies, fund Red Cross, whatever.
Right. And like
to get there and support this.
Because Ukraine has been leveled.
Yeah.
Like some of those big cities are, I mean, they're 10, 20, 30, 50 years out of recovery.
Oh, yeah.
On the like,
oh, yeah. It's Ukrainistan.
Yeah.
And us being there, we're proxying Russia just like we did in the Middle East. And like, I'm not saying Ukrainians are going to be the source of the next Taliban. But we're in like a very dangerous territory of like setting them up for.
We gave them a lot of pretty wild weapons.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And who's to say that the people that we gave those to are going to still have them in 10, 20 years from now?
Yeah. Yeah. And the detriment, long-term detriment to that country and society is it's going to take a long time to recover. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't forget parts of it too. And so.
Yeah. I think we're seeing the Ukraine war, I think, is definitely like a generational trauma war. Like, I think that is something that for a lot of people in Eastern Europe will be the thing that makes them despise Russians for the next 50 years. You know what I mean? And like, rightly so. Like, there's a lot of stuff that was awful that occurred and a lot of things that like, I don't condone that. I know Russian troops and all that did. Absolute evil atrocities. But like, if you want to make that argument, then why aren't we going to just stop like the awful atrocities that China does to the Uyghurs and literally rounding them up and trying to sterilize a whole people in concentration camps?
Yeah. And for some perspective on talking about like the generational trauma, it's like, not to take away from any lives lost, Iraq, Afghanistan, America lost 7,000.
Damn.
And that's not talking about all the injuries, both mental, physical, spiritual that came back with all those dudes, right?
Yeah.
But just talking straight numbers, 7,000
over the course of
7,054 over 2 decades.
Yeah.
In Ukraine, they are, and also that's not. This did not take into account the amount of people we killed over there.
Yeah.
But
it's purely American,
right?
Casualties.
So, but for Russia, Ukraine, they're like in the 300,000s estimated on some of that. So like that's a different number.
Yeah,
that's a different number of what's going on,
and that's pretty one-sided too. Like, don't get me wrong, not necessarily just one-sided in that like Russia hasn't lost a substantial amount of military forces, but Ukraine has not pushed into Russia and destroyed like very heavily populated Russian cities, right? And so it's one of those things of like a lot of Russians, I think, won't be aware of like the toll of this war and its relations to other nations in Europe, and how that's going to look for decades. Yeah,
because Russia's approaching 300,000 and Ukraine's lost. This is saying 31,000.
There's no way that's right.
I mean,
there's no way.
So I think I need to do some more digging, but I do know that this one's saying 31,000 lost. That's the article from February of Ukrainian soldiers. But I mean, because
soldiers. What about civilian?
Yeah, so there's no civilian casualties in that. But I do know, like, so while they haven't wrecked their cities, Russia has slaughtered their own men. Like to the tune of a generation. And so on both sides, even just taking Ukrainian troops, 31,000 comparatively to 7,000, and then adding in Russian people, 300,000, it's and these numbers, we're pulling articles here, but they may not be exact, but it's just a lot of people.
That is a lot in under a year, right? I just still have,
we just hit 2 years.
I'm flabbergasted by 300,000, the prediction of 300,000 Russian troops.
Because, and I don't know if the initial invasion, they were told they were running They told their guys, all right, get ready. We're going to go do some war games. We're going to do some training missions. They got on their planes, heading in, jumping in, tanking in is when they were told. Like they were on the plane when they were told we're going to war and we're invading.
Yeah.
Like
not a really clear unified effort.
Yeah. And just being so unprepared. And so, and this goes back to a little bit of talking about drafting people into, the drafts that could be incoming. That's not a lot of faith in your men's fortitude or in your just cause if you have to trick them that bad into coming in.
I stand corrected, man. I thought that would be way more skewed towards civilian casualties, but they are saying 315 to 360 in Russian casualties, which casualties means killed, injured.
Right.
But so a lot of people didn't have a specific killed number when I was looking at stuff. It was just like that number includes injuries as well. But that's insane, bro. That is tossing the meat grinder. And to circle it back, that's actually what China did at one point. China literally, like the Chinese government confessed that this is from a what if alt his video. But he goes into details of how the China government confessed and essential, like it was leaked documentation that like one of the wars they waged back in like the 80s or 90s was literally to kill off a generation of young men so they couldn't have a revolution.
Wow.
And a lot of people, and like his prediction was that Russia was doing kind of the same thing with Ukraine. It was like, hey, I got a lot of young men, disgruntled, angry, maybe don't like the current Russian, government and economy. If I throw them in a meat grinder,
we might win some territory and we
win a little bit of land, and then I don't have to worry about these guys picking up pitchforks to, pull me out of Moscow.
That is nefarious.
Dude, it's what they do, though. It's like what a lot of these governments do to like, we got too many at home.
Communism's cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that system.
Gosh, dude. But anyways, I guess just, that kind of, I thought circled back well, but last thing I kind of had that I thought was just interesting, we were talking about kind of inflation and how things have changed, and I found this consumer price inflation chart. It's from Visual Capitalist, and they have this really sick chart. I saw one similar to this. It was like 1980s to 2012. I think they just did the same style, but from 2000 to 2020, and it shows the price changes of consumer goods and services. And I don't think a lot of people are aware of how drastically prices have changed for a lot of things. Like the number one consumer good here that's changed over the last 20 years is televisions. Televisions have become 100% cheaper. And it is 100% cheaper to buy a television today in, our current economy and value of the dollar. Whereas hospital services, primarily, if you're thinking about like, this isn't healthcare. This isn't like your healthcare insurance. This is literally like how much it costs, how much the hospital bills for an MRI. That has gone up over 200% since 2000. Which I think makes sense, which tracks with like how insane health insurance has become. If you're paying that family plan, it's like another $100 a month this year is what they got raised to, right?
Yep. And all the if you're someone who has to live on prescriptions, whatever, like you see all those things really coming through there. And the other thing, the next one being college tuition and fees, like, and we've seen that with our we've obviously seen it, but also that's a huge point of contention, unrest for the current like young generation of people.
It's like one of the biggest reasons actually people think there could be a revolution in the U.S. is because of a lack of return of value on debt. And that's like one of the reasons of like back in the Roman Revolution, one of the large reasons there was, the public wanted to bring the downfall of Rome was because they were in debt and not seeing a return of value on the debt they had. And it was like incredibly stagnating. And so like, and that still happens today across the globe. A lot of people don't realize like debt is one of the main motivators to say, actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to jail for this, and you're not going to take my house, and I'm going to go march in the streets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take your house.
When you feel like you don't have agency or control over your future and outcome or your children's outcome, it starts to play in your head. And what I think is interesting about looking at this chart specifically too, from a more all-inclusive level, is the things that have become affordable. While a lot of that's because of technology advances to create them, cell phone, software, toys, television, looking at this through like a planned or nefarious lens, the things that we need most, housing, hospitals, higher education, food, these things rocketing up, and then the things like cell phones, software, televisions, toys dropping down.
Oh yeah.
You could guess, or you could say that it's a little bit of a, give them bread and games,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's, it's the Coliseum.
I think
the television is the Coliseum.
Oh,
the cell phone is the Coliseum.
Oh yeah.
And it is so accessible, and it's so rampant, and it's so mind numbing. There's larger things at play here, whether planned or not, that are that play into this whole conversation, and I think that the accessibility of these things that don't matter really, to our survivability and to giving us purpose, giving us agency, it's showing that divide, and it's showing that those same things we've seen, just like give them the games.
Well, and it's like one of those things too. I think of like, if you make a cell phone more accessible, video games more accessible, toys, TV more accessible, it's a lot easier, I think, to then use those as a method of making the other things more expensive, right?
Yep.
So like, a cell phone is cheaper, but guess what? You're going to spend more time on it and money through it getting DoorDash, right? Or, doing teledoc, right? Stuff like that. And so I think there is a lot to be said about, the way that technology has become cheaper to make it more accessible, to make these other things cost more.
And at the same time, why isn't an MRI cheaper? As technology advances, if a
plasma TV is cheaper, shouldn't an MRI be cheaper now?
I mean, like my iPhone has more technology in it than any hospital device had in 1983.
Oh yeah,
like
way more.
It's like the tech in there too is like, I don't know. It's the strings are being pulled.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's not sustainable, right? And I think that's like how a lot of people feel, is like, this can't be sustained. This can't keep going. And even that, there's the jokes of like all the billionaires right now, like Mark, what's his last name?
Zuckerberg.
I was going to say Zuckerberg, and I knew that was wrong. Mark Zuckerberg, he like is building like an insane like $3 billion house compound with an underground bunker part of it. Now a lot of people say
multi-storied bunker complex.
A lot of people said they're like, Mark Zuckerberg's spending $3 billion on a nuclear bunker, and it's like, no, the bunker is part of the design. He's building a big ass house in Hawaii on a lot of acreage. Part of the features of that house is a big underground bunker, but that's not that's not the one thing. But anyways, him and a couple other like billionaires are doing all these bunkers.
Are becoming preppers all of a sudden.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting trend. If all of them are becoming preppers, all of them want to build their bunkers, what do they think is coming? I do think it's interesting because I'm just like, I just don't think it's very realistic to be like, oh yeah, the mob will not get to me in my bunker.
Yeah.
It's like, they will. Or they will get you to come out. You either choose to die in your bunker and I'm not saying I condone any of this, right? But I'm just saying, like, many wealthy man has built a castle both above ground or below ground. And the most poorest of his nation have walked through his doors to get him.
Yeah.
And like you are not there's no way you're going to escape it. Maybe if you get to another planet.
I was gonna say, your only hope is Neuralink and the metaverse being able to put your consciousness out. That's your only escape at this point.
Even then, do not put it past a disgruntled low class person to just piss on the servers.
Low class programmer to torture you in your eternal existence.
And it's one of those things of like you can get in your bunker, you can be in your castle, but guess what? Like, all right, well, no more food's going in. Oh, that's what you wanted? All right, well, I guess shoot, maybe we just bang on it until you go insane and like you come out. You know what I mean? And it's just one of those things that like I just think a lot of people haven't thought through the realistic situation for that.
And the what's the point of your existence if you're living in a bunker?
Yeah, true. Very true. Side note, for anyone interested, I did see that there is a bunker in Wyoming that is an abandoned missile silo for sale to be purchased as a residence. Now, a lot of it's been gutted. There's a ton of graffiti, but it is 12 stories.
Wow.
And it's on for sale for $2 million in Wyoming right now. So take a look. Just type in bunker on Zillow. Yeah, I was looking the other day. Okay, I was looking to see how common it is to have a bunker in America. But just type bunker in Zillow over Wyoming and you should be able to find it. It's like a legit abandoned missile bunker.
That's going to be a niche realtor pocket in the future.
Bro, you could tell they did not want to take pictures of it because the pictures, there's no power and they're on level 5 and there's just still sketchy graffiti all over the place.
Some people specialize in condos or commercial or whatever, high-end luxury homes. I specialize in selling bunkers.
I would renovate it if I had that money. If I had the insane amount of cash needed to modernize and update and renovate that to underground apartments. Oh, hell yeah, dude. If you live in Wyoming, you want to live underground out of the wind.
Yeah, just to escape the wind. No kidding.
So,
oh my goodness.
Anywho, that's it. Well, Pat, I guess, is there anything else that you wanted to cover from our kind of, recap? We've been gone for a while and this is covering a lot of topics.
No, yeah. It's good to be back in the saddle, just talking about what we talk about, and the kind of going back to some of the stuff I said at the beginning of it's highly probable that all these crazy things happen in the near future. It's also highly probable that we're still just doing what we do every day, living, being people, enjoying the breeze, enjoying the Wyoming breeze, enjoying an ice cream cone, whatever,
I'll say when I think of highly probable, I will say the best methods we have for predicting these things indicate that these things are going to happen
at some point in time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, inevitably they will happen at some point in time. Who's to say if it's next year, this year, 10 years, 20 years, right? All that said, sometimes the best indication you have for something still doesn't mean it's going to happen. The likelihood of it occurring is still very small. Even though you have your best indicator telling you, oh, when this is telling me that this happens, because whenever this happens, this other thing happens. And, who knows, right?
And just like the person fixating, the rich or poor person fixating on building their bunker or whatever, how much life can you get robbed of by fixating too mumuch on all these things? Hey, be ready for some of it. Be paying attention to all of it. And but also you as an individual have a finite amount of time here that you don't know how long that is. You don't know the conditions of the world around you, how they're going to change. And you have to keep there's beauty in life all the time. And something I think that's always interesting is people who've been through extreme hardship personally, or been through, extreme situations in a upheaval of a country or something, who's now looking on the backside of it. There's those people who can still enjoy life.
Oh yeah.
And even better than others.
And a lot of those people who came through the other side of that stuff, you talk to the people who survived concentration camps. None of those people were the people who were so I was prepared for this.
Right.
After World War I got ready.
Right.
You know what I mean? Not saying there's not any reason to prepare. I'm just saying the people who were prepared probably left. All right, let's just be real. The people who were prepared probably got up and left. But I'm just saying the people who survive and endure through that stuff can still be very, There's hope and happiness on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think a lot of people don't understand is like when we talk about like a U.S. revolution, that doesn't mean everyone's dead. That just means whatever comes out the other side, different form of government. And who knows what that will be, better or worse, right? But that's what happened with the Civil War. You know, as Nicolas Cage says, before the Civil War, people used to say and refer to America as America is the United States. Oh no, sorry, maybe I butchered that. America, the United States are America, and now the United States is America. And it's like that. R is group collective, is singular, and it's like, but yeah, before the Civil War, people referred to the United States as like an R. They are this, they are that, because they are independent states. After the Civil War, everyone started referred to them as is. The United States is. And who knows? Maybe we'll see a little bit of a breakup of the Union or restructuring the Union, and it'll become an R thing again. A lot more independent state to state stuff. Who knows, right? All I'm saying is it's not always bad. It's not always a bad thing. It could be a good thing. So with that, I think, Pat, it's time for you to sign off, dude.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. And I think that we're excited to keep bringing you all these things. Check us out on all the different places we are. We're coming out with more and more stuff on YouTube, and we're going to start using, you know, some of these videos and articles, things we talk about. We're starting incorporating those in our videos on there so you guys can see what we're talking about and see what's going on. We're happy that people listen, and we're going to keep bringing you these little shows. So till next time.
Till next time.
Thanks for tuning in. If you love this episode, drop us a review. If you have qualms or comments, leave us a voicemail on our website. While you're there, check out our latest news, merch, and deals from our sponsors. Till next time, Ken.